Thank you for coming to this workshop and listen to the talk. My name is Bert. I'm now in the Google DeepMind. Before that, I was in the Google Brain team, which is a complex systems team. So today I'm talking about the Lenia, complex patterns, not just the evolved or discovered pattern, but also other patterns like in the parameter space. So there are lots of complexity in the system. I will also talk about my journey in artificial life and complex systems. So in my high school years, in the 1990s, I got my first PC, which is X02X6 with just 4 megabytes of RAM. But I get hooked into programming. At the time, I was using Pascal and some assembly. And then I tried to, I don't know why, but I have a very interested in some system that is very complex, and I don't know what's happening there. So I want to simulate them using some simple code, for example, Game of Life, the Mandelbrot set, some Lorentz or string attractors, and also playing with gravity, which all of them are like simple formulas, but they will generate something that we don't, it's not easy to understand. And then out of the Game of Life, I try to change the rules so that we can have multi-valued Game of Life. I call it primordial. And also, that system already showing some different patterns than Game of Life. And then in the 2000, I keep playing with the rule sets from time to time, and then make a few versions of the modified Game of Life. And in 2015, the same year that Alex discovered Deep Dream, he shared on Twitter, and also discovered a pattern called Orbium, which is in the background. This is some the continuous moving creature inside a modified version of Game of Life, which is quite strange because I didn't expect to have this kind of pattern moving along my screen. And then I dig into, I go to Google and search, and I find there's a whole research community called Artificial Life, and also the things I play with they call it complex systems. But I also learned that I thought that I'll just have like a few of lines, the computer will discover new patterns or recognize the patterns for me, but no. At that time, it's even not possible, except for the human cognitive system to recognize those patterns. So computers cannot recognize those patterns easily. That's a few years ago. And then I tried to write my first paper about Lenia. I put it in an archive, and then later, 2 years later, I get some award from the ISAL. And then later, I joined David Ha's complex system team in Google Brain Tokyo, and then start collaborating with EMEA and Nagano University in Japan to research about this Lenia system. And then these few years, I started to attend Alife conference in person after COVID times, and then also help organizing those conferences in Copenhagen last year, and then again this year in Kyoto. So please come to Kyoto. Yeah, lots of fun. The agenda of this talk is, first I talk about Lenia and also the various variants spawned from the original system. So it's about the systems, what are the complex systems, how do they work? And then talk about many methodologies that many researchers, they apply on these systems to measure the complexity and also try to evolve more complexity inside these linear systems. Lastly, I will talk about the parameter space in Lenia, which some surprising details like fractal structures inside this parameter space. The original Lenia, original Game of Life from Conway in the 1970s is a simple, very simple cell automata. There's this, you calculate, you sum up all the 8 cells behind, besides the one cell in the grid. And then after you sum it up, you have a very simple if then else rule. And then to decide the fate of the next state of the cell. And then you get this kind of moving pattern along the grid. This is the glider. But if you have a larger neighborhood, sum up the around it, and then you not just sum up, you have a weighted sum. And then for the if then else, you have not some simple rule, but you have a Gaussian kind of decision-making function. You start to see some strange continuous pattern moving along the grid. So this is the continuous Game of Life, the original Lenia in 2019. I presented in the Gecko workshop. So this is one kind of continuous cell automata, which have continuous states, space, and time. This is the algorithm of calculating Lenia, which I'm sure some of you know about this. This is the convolution with a ring or multiple ring kernels to get some kind of perception or bird pattern of the original pattern. And then you pass through some kind of activation function, which is a Gaussian function to get some kind of reaction of the perception. And then you add back a part of it back to the pattern, but you also creep the range back to 0 and 1. This is the original algorithm, but you can change any or every part of it. But marked in purple is the growth function, which is growth of the convolution. This is the core. I believe it's the core part of Lenia. Otherwise, you are free to change everything inside the system and see what happens. This is the fun of it. You can play with anything. So in the next version, I worked with the extended Lenia. I tried with multiple dimension, so not just a plane of 2D array, but 3D or even 4D. And later, I also played with 1D, which also works. So it's similar to the elementary CAs by Wolfram. And also you can have multiple ring kernels, multiple convolutions, and also you have multiple channels, different colors. And also you can play with the creep function, not a hard creep, but some kind of sigmoid function to have a soft creep. You have other kinds of behavior of the system. And then other researchers, for example, Davis and Bongard, they work on not just one growth function, but 2 growth functions. So we have a persistent and also a growth function. One major line of variant is called asymptotic Lenia, developed me and also the Nagoya University Arita Labs people. The idea is to not using a growth function, which will grow indefinitely, but using a target function. The system tries to match the target. The target is calculated from the linear-like function. But because it's approaching a target, the values will be much smoother, like between 0 and 1. And the patterns actually are also much smoother. And the good thing is you get a pure PDE, not just a creeping update function, but you can have very nice mathematical properties from this PDE. Later, in the University of Tokyo, the team tried to emulate the kernel using a reaction diffusion system of the asymptotic Lenia. And they have some interesting results, but the patterns can be reproduced in the RD system, but it's moving quite slow. And then another major line is the flow Lenia that I work with the people in India. The idea is to have a some kind of gradients or they call it a flow field calculated from the growth function and the original distribution. And then they used a called reintegration tracking to move the mass around. Later, the team led by Alex from Zurich, they based on the idea and use a particle system using similar formulation, but instead of cellular automata, they move the particles around. And in the work in progress, I try to combine the ideas of a flow and also the particles. But how about if we took the number of particles to infinity? And then I try to borrow the ideas from the fluid dynamics and also put some reaction diffusion into the mix. So I got some really strange patterns going on. So later, I hope I can share with you about this system. I call it a reaction diffusion system, which is more physics sounding. There are some other deviations, but I will talk about these systems later because they are more on the methodology on how to study Lenia and related systems. So this is some kind of tree diagram from Game of Life to Lenia. And there's also other parallel development by other researchers and engineers. But out from Lenia, we can have other kinds of tree of ideas which are like a lot because researchers keep sharing ideas and based on their ideas and build on their own ideas and play with the different systems. In the next part, I will talk about how to measure complexity and we evolve higher complexity in Lenia. For the patterns in Lenia, we can have a few tasks. For example, if you see some patterns, you can try to analyze them as complex systems. You can try to evolve or train patterns using evolution algorithms or gradient descent. And using quality diversity, you can try to explore the whole parameter space, discover more patterns. And then with the idea of open-ended evolution, maybe you can try to evolve patterns forever, have more and more complexity. And then in the later slides, I will try to describe different functions. Some of them are just for observation, just to see what happens. But some of the measures they can use as the loss function or fitness function to be minimized or maximized. And also as a diversity descriptor in quality diversity algorithms. And lastly, we can use this measure as an evaluation metric to see how good these algorithms goes. First, we want to analyze those patterns that we find. First, if you see those patterns looming around, I try to measure the total mass and the density, or maybe you can measure the speed of moving, or if some of them are rotating, you try to measure the angular speed. Something about this. You try to measure the patterns as if they are some real-life creatures. So here I try to plot mass against speed, and for different species, you can have they discuss clustering in their behavioral space. So it's quite interesting. You can cluster using these measurements.
So, question: to make this graph, did you search the parameter space randomly, or they were optimized?
I just plot a pixel by pixel in the parameter space.
Okay.
So the parameter space is just two dimension, the mu and sigma.
Okay.
So it's relatively easy to get all the different variations of the same species.
So you initialize with a specific creature, or?
Yeah, for example, the green island, I initialize with the Orbium creature, but I like swipe off through the and to get as many variations as possible, and then I plot all the measurements of those different heavier or lighter or faster, slower Orbiums. Yeah.
So they're completely stationary?
Sorry?
Are they completely stationary in time? I mean, they go at a constant speed, which is...
They have different speeds, different
the speed
sizes.
is constant in time, and it's a traveling, it's a complete
Some of
traveling.
them are, they will change. Some of them are chaotic even. They will like, even like, they are not going straight line, but some curved line, or even some, they have things like wobbling, chaotic.
So some of them have a lifetime?
Sorry?
They live for a certain time?
I will discard those short time creatures because they are unstable. So these are only stable patterns that they seem to be living for.
Which means they live for a time longer than sometimes
Longer
that you specify.
than like 1,000 time steps, for example.
Okay.
So my simulation is I can only cut off a certain time step. I cannot go forever. And because of the halting problem, we cannot prove that this pattern can go forever. Yeah, we cannot prove that. It just simulates as long as possible. And then using this metrics, we can use evolution algorithm, use them as a fitness function, using the EvoJax framework developed in the Google Brain team. For example, if you want to have a fastest pattern, you can use the speed as the fitness function and then evolve faster and faster or spinning faster and faster creatures, patterns. And then these are the fastest and rotating and creatures that I got.
So there is a kind of speed of light, right, for these rules, right?
Yes.
Is it close to the speed of light?
Unlike in Game of Life, you have C or C slash 2. The speed of light here is variable, even for Orbia.
I see.
So a small change in the parameters will change its speed. So you can have a range of, maybe you, this is the range of speed. So you can see maybe it's normally distributed from 0.4 to 0.6. And then a bit further to more recent model of particle Lenia. They calculate the total energy of the certain kind of field of those particles. This is the equation there. So the growth function and also a repulsion function. The energy is just growth minus repulsion. And then they try to plot the total energy of those particles. The energy is more like, it feels like the particles, they try to optimize their energy to be at the lowest energy, lower and lower energy, but not always getting the lowest. You see sometimes they'll get a bit higher. So it seems like those particles in the particle Lenia, they are optimizing for something, but we don't know yet. We want to know what they are optimizing in this kind of particle system. It's also surprising that given this dynamical system, it's just some description of the energy, and those particles will do something that we are not telling them to do. It's not evolution, it's not gradient descent, but they are somehow doing something in the system. I'll go here first because I try to play with a 3D version of particle Lenia and also plot the energy of each particle. And you see the different phases and also different patterns, which is mesmerizing. Again, we don't know what's happening there. I hope there's some algorithm to study the different phases, and also maybe there's a metric of overall metric of these particle energies. And then in Japan, in Osaka University and Hokkaido University, they also study particle Lenia, but after the pattern stabilized, they stretch the pattern to longer and see what happens in the energy level. And then in here, indeed, the energy goes higher, but then they will also optimize the energy again after the disturbance. They find different patterns have different kinds of response to this disturbance using some metrics. Just the average and standard deviation of the total energy. So yeah, let's see this. Again, in the flow Lenia, which use a flow kind of mechanism, instead of just increasing, decreasing the values. These are the patterns that we got from flow Lenia. But then we also use, for example, linear speed and angular speed as a physics function. I also maybe try to let the patterns survive some obstacles or follow a chemotaxis, and it works. Using evolution algorithm, we can evolve some patterns inside flow Lenia.
In this case, you're evolving both the initial condition and the parameters, or just one
just the parameters, just part of the parameters, not all. Yeah.
Okay.
So about training, just now it's evolving using finite function. In this project, with the original Lenia, also with India, we try to use gradient descent, that is a neural CA algorithm, to train those patterns. You can see the yellow patterns there in the second row in the background. And we also place some obstacles, the blue dots in the road, and see if they can survive the collisions. At first, they would just all die out, but after training with gradient descent and also using curriculum learning, which is they go further and further the target, and also more and more obstacles. And many of them, after training, they work really well at surviving the obstacles. Some of them even pass through a maze. So it's successful. We use L2 loss in the training neural CA, and then use some metrics like robustness, how many of them survive the collisions in those metrics.
Can I ask a question on the previous one? I was wondering, so since you're training with gradient descent, but this is a standard Lenia, right?
Mm.
So the values are clipped often. Right?
Yes.
So doesn't this hurt the gradient descent algorithm?
Yeah,
like,
we thought about this. Like,
Okay.
it's not very differentiable, but it worked.
Okay.
I mean, value is also like not very smooth. is that you have a corner here, but it actually worked, right? So the grid function is also like very just a few.
Yes,
It's differentiable, but not the 2 points.
Yes.
But it's differentiable. But at the same time, we also make the kernel more differentiable. So we make everything we try to make it differentiable. But maybe using a soft script like a sigmoid
exactly.
function, maybe it works better.
Because it looked like also that the final creatures, at least in the pictures, they feel a bit less, how do you say? The value seems to be more between 0 and 1. They're not like saturated. So could it be that the creature also evolved to have some sort of meta evolutions to have better gradients?
That's true. That's
rely
true.
on the clip.
That's true. That's true. Yeah, maybe if they are not saturated but
Yes,
more
exactly.
gradients, then they may better to feel the surrounding. Yeah, you have a very good suggestion. So in these projects from Zhang et al., not just because the kernel we used to use those Gaussian function as a ring kernel, but this project they evolve the kernel pixel by pixel, so it's free, actually freestyle kernel. They use variation over time of active cells and also autoencoder the reconstruction loss as the fitness function. And they succeed in evolving the system to have moving patterns out of nothing. Excuse me for going back and forth in different versions of Lenia. This time is flow Lenia. And then this team also from Japan, they because if you see these patterns, RGB patterns, they try to see it as an image of RGB images, because the company is working on, it's Epson, they're working on a printer, things like that. So they try to use image compression ratio as the fitness function to evolve not just more and more complex patterns, but for the complexity of desired complexity, which I think is very, very interesting way to do so.
So the fitness was maximizing the size of the compressed.
Not maximizing, but a desired level of compression. Okay, so they try to find the lowest compression ratio, which is like 0.2, and also they find the maximum compression ratio, which is near 0.6. But they also succeed in, for example, I want the compression ratio to be 0.4, which seems to be having more interesting pattern. And if you have a 0.4 compression ratio and evolve for that, and then you get the patterns of that level of compressibility. Because the higher compressibility appears to be just a chaotic pattern, which is not very interesting.
The plug is not working, so we'll probably switch computer. Because it's not charging and it will turn off suddenly. So probably you can switch to this.
So it's part 2, but I'll quickly go through it. It's about a parameter space of Lenia, which is quite complex, can be quite complex. There are 2 parameters in Lenia, which is mu and sigma of the proof function. And also there are 2 hyperparameters, R and T, which is the space scale, which is the size of the kernel, and also the time scale. That means how how fine-grained is the time step of the simulation. So remember these 4 parameters and hyperparameters, because we will plot the different maps using these 4 parameters. The 2 parameters, which is mu and sigma, controlling the growth function in Lenia. If you plot in the beginning of the Lenia project, find many species, and then I try to plot where are the patterns exist in the parameter space. You got this map. Those are the different shapes of the patterns. Some are moving, some are spinning, some are chaotic. They exist in different portions of this map. For example, the orbium, which is in the moving animation, is in the green island in this map. That means the orbium creature only exists in a certain range of mu. That is the mean of the Gaussian function, and also a certain range of the sigma of the Gaussian function. Otherwise, it will explode or disappear. So if we zoom in into this part of map, it seems like there's some rough edges in both sides. This side is rougher. This side, the lower side is smoother. But I didn't know what's happening. It just feels like some chaotic landscape there. And near the orbium island, this is the spinning pattern. The dry orbium is just nearby. They're somehow touching each other. But again, we don't know why it's the shape and what was the relationship between these two. It's complicated. And then last year, Ivan in Alife showed a very detailed map of the Orbium Island, which is, I don't know if it's surprising or not surprising, it has fractal structure, very fine-grained, this kind of structure. This is the C of 0. That means the patterns will disappear in this side of map, and this side will be all, they becomes all trivial mass. That is just some static or slowly moving circles. The difference between my map in 2019 and the map here last year is that in my map, in my map, all the patterns, for example, I start from one orbium here, and when I sweep through the map, the parameters and the initial patterns also keep adapting to the new parameters.
Can I ask a quick question? What's the intuition as to why these patterns all lie at roughly a constant curve, roughly constant slope in U sigma space? Why should that happen?
Yeah, I try to understand. If you increase the mu of the Gaussian function, but then decrease the sigma, actually, I don't know. But it seems like it's the same, similar proportion.
But is it because you kind of need to know your own activity to kind of evolve, right?
Yeah, kind of getting similar amounts of activity.
Can you?
Because if you look at this Gaussian, it's kind of how much you average things around you. But if the mu is much bigger than the sigma, you become completely unaware of what is in your immediate surrounding.
Nice, good.
So, yeah. Another idea is just, intuitively you would have that sigma increases as mu increases, because as you increase mu, it means that you need more and more activations to grow. So if you increase the sigma, it means there is a higher range of activations that allows you to grow. If I take a very high mu and a very low sigma, it means I need to be super activated to grow. And of course, how will you grow to this activation? So that's also one trend.
Is the analogy to like Game of Life is like if the number of cells you need to be alive around you is really, really high, if you have like a really big kernel, like you have to kind of balance it off somewhere. So like if it's really easy to die and it's really difficult to grow, then your pattern might disappear. So it's this balancing act, I guess, of.
Also, if you get a higher mu, then it's harder for the pattern to survive. So you have to also increase the sigma to get more larger range for the pattern to survive. That's the intuition. And also, if you get more and more in this direction, the pattern also gets heavier and heavier. The total mass is larger. So it's matching the intuition. And in my map is every pixel is I'm using a nearby starting initial pattern. That means the pattern can adapt to the new parameters. But here, Ivan is using the pattern in the green star. So starting with the same orbium to see what it reacts with different parameters. So it's the difference between these two maps. But it's nice to see these patterns. And this is the overlap comparing the two maps. So you see my map has a larger orbium island because the pattern can adapt to the new parameters.
What does the color encode in the last map?
Sorry?
What does the color encode in this map? The fractal one? The color means what value is it?
Because you have red colors
It's just
on the bottom. What does it mean to be red versus yellow?
Time till divergence or something?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So in this map,
Yes.
yellow is like they will survive forever, and the purple one is they die quickly, and what in between is they can survive for some time but not definitely. So it's like the Mandelbrot set. You have the value how long it will looping before going to infinity. So these are the fine structures inside the map, this map. So this is really fractal thing. You can see not random, not chaotic, but you can see some kind of structure inside. And then Tyrell Davis, also in the same conference, also showed this similar map, also showing this kind of fractal structures. This map is similar. It's inverse, dt is the inverse of t, but you can see similar structures. This is not Lenia, but asymptotic Lenia. It is a variant of Lenia. Tyrell Davis also find similar pattern in this Lenia variant. So it's not just one system, but also applied to the variant. This is another variant that also he made, which is interesting because it's using the atom algorithm in neural network training, and then to hybrid atom with cell automata Lenia to get this hybrid system to calculate the first moment and the second moment, and then use it in the cell automata. In this system, he also find something like orbium. And then this is the fractal parameter map.
So more conceptual. So is there any understanding of, so you're showing the orbium island, and then there's this other thing, gyro-orbium, maybe you called it. Is there any mechanistic understanding of what, how you go from orbium to gyro-orbium or something like that? Like what is it that's, I don't really know exactly how these walkers sort of operate, but do you know why it changes, or like what mechanistically is going on?
What you mean changing from this to that?
Yeah.
They're separate species. So
Well, okay.
this species will, in the simulation, it will like go this way. And then for that species, it will like turning forever. There's no hybrid. But if you have start from an orbium,
Yeah.
and then you change the sigma a bit, and then we will, in the simulation, it will turn into an orbium, gyrobium. You start from orbium, it will like, suddenly change its behavior.
I understand, but I'm saying, do you know like why?
Where it turns.
I think like the pixels that are a bit behind the frontier of the pattern want to move towards higher growth, and that's why they move forward, kind of. But in that one, they want to move maybe towards more higher growth. That's why they want to come back inwards a bit. That's why it rotates, kind of.
Why is it clockwise versus counterclockwise?
It's just random.
You just mirror it.
That could be random, like.
Yeah.
Oh.
I mean,
Yeah.
both are
Fluctuated a bit.
living in
You
the
can
same
mirror it.
process.
I see.
Yeah. But the intuition here is there's some kind of stability landscape. For this species, the landscape is symmetric. But for that situation, some kind of symmetry is broken. So it kind of like moving sideways in order for the pattern to keep going.
The only way to break the symmetry is through the initial pattern, right? Because the kernel is necessarily symmetric, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Even the initial pattern is something else like orbium. It will converge to this behavior. So it's kind of like a attractor in this stability space.
Do you know if you initialize with like perfectly symmetric initial conditions, if it fails to do so? It should, right?
Even
I
flow.
think the floating point operations will break the
Yeah.
seal.
Fair enough.
I think it's an unstable kind of.
I see.
You fall into one direction
Right.
if you change a little bit. So this is the interesting thing about complex systems. The Mandelbrot set, the Lenia parameter map, and also recently we see the new network chaining. If you tune the hyperparameters, you plot hyperparameters to see if the neural network succeed or fail to train. You also get this kind of fractal map. So the idea is many this kind of complex system, if they are sensitive to initial conditions and they are computationally irreducible, then maybe you get this kind of parameter map in fractal structures, which is what the researchers is thinking. Yeah, this is difference I talked about. And then also, you can measure the fractal dimension in these maps. The Mandelbrot set is 2, which is 1 higher than. You can expect to be 9, right? 9 is 1, but it's actually 2, so it's a space filling curve. In neural network, it's like between 1 and 2. So what about Lenia? Maybe it's also between 1 and 2. but is the fractal structure dimension related to complexity? We don't know. This is, if we plot the albion with different space and time resolution, that means if you have a bigger kernel and more fine-grained simulation, we should get this kind of more and more smooth simulation. But it's not that simple. Many researchers find that some patterns can only survive in certain range of step size. If you get smoother and smoother step size, you get the pattern will disappear. And it's also, you can see in the fractal map, it's not that simple in this side, is this part of the map. That means by increasing the fine grainness in time, doesn't mean you always get a pattern. But again, the relationship is complicated. This is also from the Atom CA, also have the same phenomena. The third part is about some, I want to see, because I find this kind of chaotic pattern, which is very interesting because not all patterns are well behaved, like moving in constant speed or rotating in constant speed. This kind of pattern is very interesting. It seems to have multiple templates of a pattern. Sometimes it will move forward, sometimes it will rotate, sometimes it will die out. What would be the parameter map of these creatures? So I found some time to plot the parameter map pixel by pixel, which is very tedious task, but also very fun. It turns out that the chaotic pattern is sitting in the crossroads of different stable patterns. For example, this one is, you can see in this slide. These ones are the stable patterns. They are alternating or moving or spinning. But in the center part of these islands, it is the chaotic pattern. So the intuition is these patterns, they don't know what they want to be. Sometimes they want to be oscillating, sometimes they want to be moving, and sometimes they will disappear. That's how they become chaotic. And also we expect the boundaries of the islands to be fractal, like before. But I didn't have the resolution for this task. And the intuition here is, again, as a stability landscape, is dynamic and also is complicated that the pattern there are multiple stable trajectories inside this space, but because of the dynamic nature, the patterns keep changing, switching among different stable trajectories. So it's really hard to imagine this kind of landscape.
So when the pattern is fixed, it means you are like in a minimal local minimum, or
Sorry?
I don't know if when your pattern is quite fixed, like it's stable. It means you are in the minimum local, or
Minimum.
like the image after.
You mean what you mean by stable, right?
Yeah, you show it can die out.
Oh, okay,
It's
okay.
go out and
Okay.
where-
So that means dying out is, you can say the chaotic pattern has different trajectories coming from these stable patterns. And dying out, the orange trajectory, like dying out is also one option. Like it will keep going forever.
Okay, so this graph is only for the transitional non-stable.
Yeah.
And how is it when it's stable? Like.
Oh, okay. So you can imagine if it's stable, then there's like a circle in this landscape, and the pattern is just circling around.
Okay.
Not going out, not dying out, not going to some other trajectory.
Okay.
If it's static, then you just stay at one point. But here you can imagine it's going around, moving around chaotically.
Just a remark, Bert, but just a remark on a quick thought. But imagine this chaotic pattern could reproduce. Imagine you find a way to make it reproduce. I guess it would be a very good starting candidate in the sense that it's quite a generalist species that can quickly move in parameter space to more specialized type of behaviors. So could adapt very quickly actually to environmental changes and different conditions.
Actually, the aquarium species, I call it aquarium, is, I don't know if I show it somewhere. It's the RGB friction. It's the same as this. It's chaotic. Not too chaotic, but it has multiple stable modes. Yeah. But it can also reproduce.
Bert, you have 5 more minutes.
Okay. Yeah, I think I show you.
It's finished actually.
But yeah, I mean, in summary. So in terms of parameter space, they can be fractal. That would be reflecting the computational complexity inside these systems. Even they are, the rules are simple, like Game of Life, they're simple, but if you look through the simple rule again and again and again, then you get the complexity, which is intractable for many cases. And also, some patterns will be feeding on discretization. If some of the patterns, they only exist in certain range of the time resolution or space resolution. And also, by studying the chaotic patterns, you can imagine the stability landscape. There's some complexity, which is dynamic and keep changing by studying the parameter space of these chaotic patterns. Yeah, so that's all. Lastly, I remember in number 5 in the YouTube channel, John Conway said, "Oh, I hate Game of Life," because the reason is that it overshadowed many of the important things he discovered, like the surreal numbers. He was like tired of everything, only Game of Life about his name. But then I received an email from his colleague in Princeton. He showed Lenia to John Conway before he passed away in 2020. And he said, John Conway actually quite mesmerized by Lenia. So I hope he'll be happier with Game of Life and seeing this new version of Game of Life. Yeah, so this is some anecdotes about this great mathematician. Thank you.
Now is the time to transition ourselves to lunch.
I guess we can have time maybe for 1 or 2 questions if people have.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. Okay. There was quite a lot of questions, but yeah, I think we have time for a few questions still, if there are any. Yeah.
So I have a kind of like question about the broader aims of this research program. So within this world of Lenia, it seems that there's there's sort of two distinct things one could work on. One is a kind of phenomenology, and the other is a kind of mechanistic interpretability, which in biology roughly would map onto something like descriptive biology versus molecular or possibly systems biology. So, and then separately, there's a question of how this relates to actual living systems. I mean, that's kind of whether there's sort of a functorial map between things that you find in this universe and in the actual biological universe. And it seems at least what you were talking about in the talk is that you made the case that Lenia, at least in this, in this world, offers an interesting setting for a type of descriptive or phenomenological biology of this. I mean, it's not really biology, but of this Lenia universe or set of universes. So I wanted to ask, what do you take to be the broader aims of the research program as it pertains to either interpretability or actual biological systems?
So, one thing is it's an urge to compare it to actual biology. If we say it's artificial life, then what's the relationship with actual living system? So I always struggle that it doesn't always look like actual life. It's always the difference. So how can we interpret it? You can say that it's a very high level phenomenon in artificial life systems, not just Lenia, but many complex systems, and compare it to the actual biology. Actual biology suffers from one thing, is n equals to 1. It's just the life we got now. We don't have the second system. Maybe if we find some extraterrestrial life in some exoplanets, then maybe we have n equals 2, but not now. So we only have one system that have DNA based on the biochemistry that we know of. So you can say that Lenia or other artificial life system is the other systems that have similar phenomena like self-replication, like moving creatures, like some patterns, they would maintain their own boundary. They try to, I don't want to mix with other patterns. It's me. So we kind of study agency in these systems. That's how the many research teams, they try to come up with variants. They come up with different methodologies to study these systems, to see if we can get some idea of what's happening in biology, what's meant by life, what's meant by self-replication, what's meant by an agent in biology. To study with a very abstract system and see how can we compare to the life we know. And also, what I think is prepare ourselves to, for example, there's some efforts in finding life in other, like in the universe, right? But what would we mean by life in other systems? Would they be self-replicating, or would they be, what's the definition? If we find something moving in other planets, then how can we define their life? So by doing this exercise, we want to refine the definition, play with the definition of life. If we have other choices other than the living cells. I think we can play with the definition of life is something interesting about these systems.
So you hope to have a definition. I mean, you didn't give a definition.
Expand the definition of life.
But there was no definition in the talk.
I don't think there is a definition either in biology.
Yeah, with biologists, we do. There's no common sense definition of life.
Maybe a related question. So, I mean, you talked about key aspect of it was self-replication was really important. You also put metabolism in it.
Yeah, metabolism.
Evolution with some sort of gene conservation. Maybe at some point ecology. But I was wondering with respect to self-replication, I mean, you talked about those sort of organism. I didn't really understand if they were self-replicating always or not. Should we care about those that are not self-replicating? Or in the sense that if you wait long enough, you will have maybe some rare fluctuation and have something that is self-replicating that will completely dominate, or what? Should we classify them like that, or rare nucleation events where they things self-replicate, or it's a very bad picture? Or, and for example, those organisms you talked about, some will seem to not to be self-replicating, just moving, just moving around.
Yeah. I think it's also depends on how we looking for. For example, in the early days, exploring the patterns in Lenia, we will imagine, will we able to discover self-replicating patterns in here? I hope so. I hope that so. But for a long time, we didn't see this happen in the original Lenia. But by expanding the system, playing with different rules, in the extended Lenia, I finally find some pattern that is binary fission, doing some binary fission. But replication, reproduction is something even more complicated. You have genes, you have genders, you have mutation in the replication process. So it's not just binary fission. Binary fission is the simplest way to replicate. I mean, it also depends on just how we design the system, also, or what we are looking inside the system. Also depends on how we imagine. But I want to know that something comes up that is outside of our imagination from the system. Perhaps using some kind of measurements, some kind of metric that prove that something is happening in some simulation. We see that there's nothing there, but the metric tells us something happening there, and then we will eventually find some new phenomena that we were not looking for, and they will be even more interesting than finding self-replication, finding agency. That's one goal that I want to do. So it's all important to know how to measure complexity in these systems. I hope I answer you.
Thanks.